Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? This is episode 37. In this episode, you'll learn about some of the things no one talks about when transitioning into motherhood. How to balance family, love, work, and self-care. There's power to vulnerability. Knowing your weaknesses and how to get the support that you need. Learn about gut health and its relationship with the brain, and how we can be an example of love to our children. Dr. Heidi Barker is a former world-class swimmer. She's an acupuncturist to many famous athletes all over the world. In 2005, Heidi left active service to attend Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. As a reservist, she had served as a logistician for the Commander Navy Forces Pacific, the executive officer of Commander Navy Forces. Heidi combines orthopedic and sports medicine, visualization therapy, and unique massage and body work with acupuncture and TCM to improve the lives of her patients. She has competed in numerous triathlons and adventure races, including Ironman. In 2001, Heidi finished in the top 5 of the Military Eco Challenge. Grounded by her family, her husband Brandon, her daughters Isabel and Gabrielle, she loves traveling, meditating, and being active. But her true passion is helping people experience their unlimited potential and release any self-limiting beliefs and fear in their lives. She currently gives motivational speeches on the power of the mind, tapping into athletic potential, and the power of visualization at CrossFit Invictus. I am so delighted to have Dr. Heidi Barker here with us today. Heidi has been a dear, dear friend of mine for, oh my gosh, I would say, well, at least over a decade, right?
Yes, yes.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, I would love to just dive straight in because you are such a gifted doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And I know that a lot of your clients are like famous athletes, but also just you really love to support women's wisdom, women's health. So tell us what got you interested in that or into that field in particular?
Absolutely. I felt really blessed that my life has just kind of unfolded in this organic way that, I was an athlete. And so it made sense for me to treat athletes. I really understood them. I had walked that life myself. And then as I turned 40 and I had my first child, and just learning what it was like to be a mom and also an older mom, and to explore this other aspect of myself, it just kind of organically took me into working with women. I've been to several births as a doula now and helping women with their pregnancy. Although fertility is not my specialty, I have guided some cases in that vein. And then I'm struggling with some health issues myself of being an older mom and doing all of that. I've decided to go down the functional medicine route and really help women in that way, because I feel like Western medicine really is struggling to fill the gaps with women's hormones and also just really supporting women's health post-pregnancy.
So tell us a little bit about that, because you mentioned kind of as a mom and just the strains of everyday life and also running your own business and, with our husbands, our partners, just life's demands. So are you kind of really helping women with balance and how they can maintain their health within doing all of this in their lives?
Yeah, I love to have like brutally honest conversations. I love transparency and vulnerability. And I think that when it comes to going through that life transition of, stepping into the role of a mother, it's there's not a lot of great guidance out there, and there's not a lot of real conversations. Like, how many people talk to you about like, okay, this is how your relationship with your husband is going to change. This is you need to make your relationship with your husband a massive priority in this period. I mean, did anyone ever tell you that?
Uh, I think what it is people try to tell you. I mean, even just like with a newborn, you hear, "Oh my goodness, you're 24/7, around the clock." And you're like, "How could you be? Come on, they sleep 22 hours for the first month or so." But it is just like unbelievable, and it is always my intention to honor my husband, but he even shares with conversations that he has, and it's like, when a woman has a child, on some ways it's like, it's not that they lose the woman, but she's almost different for a couple of years, and it's almost like they have to adjust. Because here's the thing, like, for both my children, I breastfed for 2 years, so like they were pretty much off limit for no, we're talking 5 years, 6 years, because 2 years of pregnancy, 4 years of breastfeeding, and only now it's like, wow, they get to be mine again. So it's like, even just that, right?
Absolutely. And then the hormone shifts that maybe, you're experiencing some incontinence. Maybe there's some of those situations that you're dealing with. Maybe, it's hemorrhoids or prolapse or there's just so many things with your body that I don't feel like anyone has those conversations with women to kind of mentally prepare them for the road ahead. And so all we see is like, okay, 2 months post baby, you should be glowing, you should be out and about, you should be back in your job, and everything's groovy. I think it's a little bit, and your body, like, your body should have been snapped back. I guess I had this unrealistic expectation that by 6 months, my body was going to look exactly the same that it did prior to my pregnancy. And maybe that's just being completely uninformed, but I think that's kind of the societal pressure, at least, in my world, that feels like that's the societal pressure to have that happen.
Yeah. And I know, right before our interview, we were talking about, thinking that we've got to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect person in our career, have the house perfect, have perfect meals cooked. And just like we were discussing, there's 24 hours in a day. We should be sleeping at least a third of them. And I often like to talk about a pie chart, right? And in that pie chart, look, it looks different for all of us, but if we have children, they're usually taking the main part of the pie chart, right? Then there's our partners, even just things like grocery shopping, the house, the laundry, our career, and then self-care. So tell us what that looks like, and then when that's out of balance, what kind of effects that has on our physical body.
Absolutely. So I just had to realize I had really struggled with asking for help. That was really tough for me because I've definitely been a kind of like, I can do it all and take it on, and I'm a really strong woman. And so that's been this journey of vulnerability for me, to be like, wow, vulnerability is actually where my strength lies. And the more I can be open and communicative and vulnerable in what I'm really feeling and going through, the more help I feel okay with asking, and the more people reflect that back to me, right?
What does that help look like, though? I mean,
so that help for me looks like friends reaching out, like, and being open to friends helping out with, if I need to help with my kids being picked up from somewhere, or if I even just need someone to watch my children for an hour. For me, my husband and I, we decided that we would get a nanny, and that's been a game changer for us because we don't have family that lives here. So we have no family support where we're living. So we just kind of sat down and we budgeted that piece because we realized that it would just, kind of flow over into so many different areas of our life and create balance for us. And also the beauty of having help with your children or even in your house is that when I'm done with my job, I can be absolutely 100% present with my children and have that be really quality time instead of running around and having to do laundry, having to cook and clean. because I've got that support of a nanny. So that's been a game changer, and just recognizing that I needed that. And we had to make some big financial sacrifices in order to make that happen, but we definitely felt like that was worth it. And then from the nutritional standpoint, because I want to keep my body in balance, in the early portion of my children's lives, I used a meal delivery service, and we couldn't afford to use that all the time, but we just used it, supplemented it a little bit. So it took some of the pressure off of food prep and cooking for us. So I'm always a big advocate of, know your weaknesses and try to find ways to get creative about filling those weaknesses in, whether you have to pay for it or just if you have like a tribe, a community that can somehow come in and help fill some of those discrepancies or gaps.
I love that. And I love that you actually brought up nutrition, because I know this is something that you're extremely knowledgeable about. When a woman is healing after birth, breastfeeding, or just even in those years you talk about nutrition, are there specific like supplements or just types of food that are extra supportive that?
Yeah, absolutely. I just attended this fascinating discussion last night on the gut microbiome. And there's so much information that's exploding on the gut microbiome. And they're talking about, that's really where wellness comes from, even brain health. So even Alzheimer's is going to be categorized as diabetes type 3. And as we're doing more research into Parkinson's, we're looking at the vagus nerve and how it goes directly from the brain into the gut, and just the relationship there. And the fascinating thing to me that I just heard in this lecture last night was that your gut microbiome actually changes in pregnancy. And so you almost get, like, some women anyway can develop almost like this obese gut microbiome when they go through pregnancy. And part of that is that your body's just trying to be more efficient with the calorie burn in order to sustain this new life, and also for breast milk and all of these other things. And so this is very, very new research, and I think we'll see a lot more to come out from this, but how some women say, like, oh, wow, after that second baby, I just was not able to get my body back. I think we're going to find that there's a lot more to it. There's a gut microbiome piece. There's a hormone piece. What's really happening with your adrenal glands? Did they get super taxed while you were in pregnancy? Did your thyroid get kicked offline like mine did? There's so many fascinating pieces. So, that's a whole massive discussion.
How would one get tested if they thought that this could be the case?
So there's some really great labs through Cyrex Labs. They just came out with an Array 14 lab. So any naturopath or acupuncturist that has the ability to do labs, it's beautiful. This Cyrex Lab Array 14 is actually a saliva test, which is really simple. And it can look at all sorts of aspects of health in your gut, and any sensitivities that your gut is experiencing. It is not a food sensitivity test. Cyrex Labs also does one of those if you have any interest in doing something of that. But this specific array, this Array 14, is a very, very expanded, in-depth lab to look at the health of your gut microbiome, if there is potentially any autoimmunity in the gut microbiome, and also what just the general health of its sensitivities, maybe to some heavy metals, how you're dealing with that, and environmental toxins, and how that's affecting your overall state of health of your gut microbiome. The other thing I think that really was fascinating to me, and my big takeaway from this study that I looked at, was short chain fatty acids are actually what the food that our body makes after we have probiotics. So this is going to make sense here in a second. We're so focused on probiotics and creating this really healthy gut flora, but what is kind of the new research is showing is the byproduct of our probiotics are these short chain fatty acids, like butyrate would be one of them. And that is such a key component to our overall health, our gut health, and also how it collaborates with our brain health. So just knowing that, I'm now shifting a lot of my treatments with my patients from, instead of just going probiotic based, I want to get them a good prebiotic. And prebiotic comes in the form of vegetable fibers. And let me backtrack a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to this. How do you get the most healthy gut microbiome possible, right? How do we establish that? And that comes from the most diverse population of healthy bacteria that you can get. So one thing that we're making a mistake with, especially in the United States, is that we're having really limited diets. You know, people like this one thing or this specific diet. Like, I eat the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day.
I do know of that. You know, it's like, okay, this feels like it's low fat, it's healthy, it's easy to prepare. Okay, like, let's just eat this, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, when you get, especially when you get really busy as a mom, sometimes it's like, wow, it's really easy to make sweet potatoes all the time, or it's really easy to make beets. So even though I have accessibility to this wonderful variety, like Asian markets, and, you know, so it's gotten me thinking I need to make more of an effort to really to have a greater variety of vegetables for my children and for myself, because I do fall into kind of like, you know, maybe it's 8 or 9 vegetables, but we kind of stick within that spectrum a lot. So the best way you could do it is honestly just get really creative and maybe pick the vegetables that you like the least, the ones that you're like, ew, I really don't like that, and stick it in a Vitamix blender.
Blend it up,
you know, and dress it up, make it a little sexy, run it through the Vitamix, because the fiber is so critical. You need that fiber.
Yeah.
You need that diversity of that bacterial population to create diversity within your gut microbiome. Yeah. And so if you could do that on a regular basis, I mean, all this stuff, like, I know we want to talk about supplements and everything, but my experience with my patients is really, it's the basics. Like, first, are we doing the basics right? Are you sleeping? Are you getting a diverse type of nutrition? And when I say diverse, I mean mostly plant-based, and then a small addition of proteins that work for your gut, because everyone's different. Some guts do well with red meat, some don't. Some people tolerate legumes, and some people don't. So that's a personal journey that you have to kind of resolve for yourself. But absolutely, across the board, we all need this diversification of population of, wide source of fruits and vegetables.
I love that. And I think for a while, you know, we were, and they do it here, but you get like baskets delivered from local organic farms, and they'll bring an entire basket, whatever's in season, to you. And I remember when we used to get this basket, be like, what is this even, you know? And like, you'd look it up, you'd figure it out, and you'd find a way to cook it. And it really would inspire you to eat these type of veggies that that you normally wouldn't. So I hear you on that, not getting kind of too stuck on the one thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
That is so amazing. Just, you know, speaking of gut and stomach and bodies, getting our bodies kind of back after pregnancy and whatever that means. I mean, back, you know, because I know right before we started, we were talking about giving ourselves that grace. And, you know, even in our Vedic medicines, like right after birth, you got 40 days where they don't even suggest leaving the house. And for people with other children or other things they have to do, they have to buy groceries, they have to whatever, that's just not practical. But let's kind of look at that and how society has us feeling like, oh, you've got to, you know, in some places you got to be back to work after 60 days, 90 days, or, you know, that. So let's kind of have a look at that and what you see in your practice and in your life and everything.
Yeah, I think what I see mostly with the women that I treat here in San Diego is that there's a lot of self-induced stress because of these unrealistic expectations that people put on themselves. And, you know, I kind of have some thoughts about that. I think it's kind of interesting. I think there is actually, this is just my personal opinion, that I think that there's some DNA that's been handed down through decades, let's go centuries, of women of kind of this martyr aspect that we do have to do it all, and we do have to do it perfectly at a sacrifice of ourselves. And so that's one perspective that I really like to shatter and try to shift for women, and let them see that the more that they make themselves a priority and take care of themselves, the better they're going to be able to affect everyone around them.
I am so with you there, because after, you know, I had my son first, Patrick, as you know, like I'd done a lot of work on self-love and healing and everything. And, you know, it's like, I got this, you know, and it was like, as soon as he's born, it was like, I don't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if I sleep, it doesn't matter if I eat, like, as long as like I've looked after him, you know. And it took me a few months to actually even come out of that. And I think like you said, like DNA, it's like biological stuff in our body that makes us like for the survival of our children, right? Even if we haven't
Absolutely.
slept in days. So there is like, I think that
Yeah.
biological piece, but then there's just that, like, even as let's say, our husbands or our mothers or the nanny or whoever it is, like, are doing a perfectly wonderful job, and we have to go to work, or even, oh my gosh, imagine some self-care, take a walk, go get a massage, whatever it might be. But it's just like this guilt. Oh my gosh, I'm leaving my child. It's like, your child, I have to actually mentally talk to myself, he's fine, he's just
Yes.
great, and like,
Yeah.
it took me a while, and I tell you what, I still go back out of balance, and then here we are a couple years later, have my daughter, I'm back there again. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And so, like, I would love to discuss that more, like comparing ourselves, like thinking this person's a better mom because she's doing this and I'm not doing that. It's just like this crazy pressure we put on ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So I actually have practices for both of those situations, because there are things that I struggled with. And I see it just so many times in the patients that I work with. And so for me, sometimes I kind of have to talk myself out of the guilt. I have to recognize that it's not real, and I kind of have to walk it through either on paper by journaling, or just do like a meditation practice where I'm really talking myself out of. This is where I think some of the athletic mindset comes in for me. Because exactly what you're talking about, when those hormones kick in and you just feel that guilt of needing to be there 24/7, like you just can't unplug in any way, shape, or form. Because even when you do unplug, 70% of you is still mentally in that space. So then it's like I can't really be present at my job because 70% of me is at home or wishing that I was at home and all of that. So in that case, I just remember this one proverb that I think is just genius. It's like an investment idea. If I have like 10 coins in front of me, and I give 2 coins to my friend, what is the return on investment of that time invested with my friends? And so maybe it's like 1 coin, or depending on the friend, maybe it is 2 coins. But if I give myself 3 coins, what is the return on investment for that? And for me, that's like 4-fold. And so when I think about it in the terms of where I'm investing my time and energy and the return on that investment, it's very simple. I know without a doubt that when I invest in myself first, the return on investment is 4-fold. And so therefore I have all of this, so much more to give to my family, my friends, my business, and all of those other things. So I have to just constantly remind myself of that analogy that, like, okay, you matter, you are important, you do need to invest in yourself.
I remember, oh my gosh, such a wake-up call. I was like, I turned around to Seth, and this was after Neve was born. I was like, honey, what do you think? What are 3 things I could do to be a better mom? And he laughed. He goes, do you want to know? I was like, yeah. He goes, take better care of yourself, take better care of yourself, take better care of yourself.
Yes,
I was like, okay, yeah, I'm hearing you, and now I just have to put that into practice. And
absolutely, yeah.
And what I would say as well is just, and I'm sure you found this, but you find your yeses, like, yes, I want to do this, start to get a lot clearer, and the no's, like, you have to be really, really clear on those too.
Oh, I love that about motherhood. Oh my goodness. That is one of the greatest gifts of motherhood for me, without a doubt, is that I think I really struggled with boundaries, and I think with women too, I hate to keep saying that, but I think there is kind of like that model that we're supposed to be available all the time and nurturers, and, it's a big yes game for us. And that has been my practice. I love that you brought that up. That's been a big practice for me in the last several years of really listening. And someone that I was working with actually mentioned, they're like, every time you say yes to a no or no to a yes, you're attacking yourself, right? Because you're dishonoring your truth. And I'm like, wow. So if someone does that over a long period of time, does that potentially open up the doors for autoimmunity? Because you're going against like what your body's telling you to do, right? Even though it's on a deep psychological level.
I just got total chills when you said that, and I got like a big yes. And it's just, there's just tiny little, like, I really tried to be clear on my yes and my no's, and the guilt thing, what I do is if I know I have to go to work and it's just like, that's just it, you know, like I just put my hand on my heart and I'm just kind of like a little bit, just make sure there are none of my old wounds, like they're perfectly happy there, you know, and then, you know, just, and I do feel a little bit of the guilt or this biological function we're talking about is there. So we don't just go off and leave our children. Like, I think part of that is there to keep us there. And of course we love them so much. And of course we want to be there. But I feel like it's kind of built in, like we are pretty amazingly designed. The fact that we can grow these babies in our belly, we can birth them, we can breastfeed, like that our heart beats. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So it isn't surprising that would also be kind of built in.
I think for in this time frame too, part of that self-care, you know, is that self-reflection and that opportunity for meditation and grace, so that you can really acknowledge the miracle one that you created, you know. And the miracle, I think, you know, one of the visualizations that I do with a lot of my moms and even just women in general is just dropping inside of your body and witnessing the living, breathing miracle that you are. You know, it's I think we get caught up so quickly in the external and just living life that we forget to just take a moment and breathe, and like, how amazing is your heart? You know, and like what your heart does, and without even having to think about it, like how it functions and all of the power that comes from all of your internal organs and all of your biochemistry, and the fact that you created a baby. Like, I mean, I don't know if you do this, but I look at my daughters and I'm just like, wow, like, you know, I'll walk up to the house and I'll open the door and I'll see her like at the kitchen table painting, and I'm like, you know, not my husband and I, but we made that. Like, doesn't that blow your mind sometimes?
Yeah, still does. I'm like, whoa, you know, and of course, like, it's not like an ownership. It's like, wow, like, it's like such an honor, you know, to brought this soul, these souls into our lives. But yeah, it still blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I love that we're talking about like being really clear on your yes and your no's, because when, you know, I really, really like to take my power back when it comes to time, because I think it's so easy to be on that roller coaster of time. Like, on some levels, yeah, there's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, if we want to follow this whole Gregorian, you know, calendar, yes, that's true. And I think there's, like, with anything, we get to take our power back, because I think the more that we're like, oh, I've got to do this, I got to do that, like, it seems like time is shorter. But the more present, like, just like you said, like, breathe, connect with the magic of our bodies, of being alive, of our children, of just a beautiful flower you see growing, and bring you back into that moment. It's almost like, you know, you're talking about this investment, you get like the 10 coins back.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it all comes back to that, and our health does too, right? Because our body, there's just such this powerful, and that's why I think, like, in my practice, you know, I use a lot of visualization. I talk about limiting beliefs with my clients, even as much as, like, we do blood labs and we look at all of that stuff, but there's a definite correlation to all of that. When you are centered and when you are clear about your boundaries and when you are honoring yourself, you're in alignment, you're in homeostatic balance, so that your body can repair itself and that it can do everything that it needs to do. And that's, again, where I think we get ahead of ourselves, where we want to, you know, run at this fast, crazy pace, and we want to do everything and we don't feel good. And it's like, what supplement can I take? And for me, that's no different than saying, what pharmaceutical can I take? First, like, let's take a step back. Let's get back to the basics and let's see what is bringing you out of balance in the first place. And let's realign, you know, or explore possibilities to realign that and get a reset point. And then if there's still some discrepancies that we need to support you until you can maintain that homeostatic balance on your own, then we kind of go down that pathway. But absolutely, like, presence and mindfulness is, I feel like, the foundation of all of it. And I talk about that with athletes. I talk about that with moms. It's just, it's part of being a human being, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'd love to ask you about this, because I have non-negotiables, and they kind of shift a little bit. But, like, if I wake up at 4 or 5, I know that sounds so early, but we go to bed so early in our house, like, and it's dark and the world is quiet. Like, no, I don't turn on any lights, I don't turn on a phone, I don't turn on a computer, and I do my yoga practice, I do my meditation. And then sometimes like one of the kids will wake up and they'll sit in silence and meditate. And, it's like, how do we teach them about love or practices? We model them. How do we teach them about self-compassion? Well, we've got to be modeling it. Like another non-negotiable is my run in the forest, just getting out in nature, healthy food. Like I have specific ones, but I'd love to know, what are some of yours, with just your wealth of knowledge in health and wellness? Like, do you have your own practices, rituals?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, you nailed it. You nailed all of it. It's so funny. I think the meditation and that mindfulness piece is critical. So I got away from it and I really missed it a ton. And so I told my girls that there's going to be 10 minutes a day. And I don't always get to do it in the morning because we just got a new puppy. And so sometimes like getting her out is...
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. So sometimes that's a priority. So I have to be a little bit more flexible with things. But I make sure I get in my 10 minutes of meditation. And it's been really beautiful. I have the girls witness it. And I tell them, you can be a part of this if you want to. If you want to do it with me, that's great. But if not, like, this is mom's time. I get 10 minutes of my own sacred space. And so they'll usually sit and have a tea party or do their thing. And the beauty of it for me is it makes it a really beautiful practice because life is going on all around me like it always does. And it even allows me to focus on being present to that even more. So it's a really, really beautiful meditation. And as I've done it more, the girls will kind of get quieter and sit, and they get really excited about, this meditation time. Oh, it's time to meditate. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. And what an amazing practice you're teaching them,
Absolutely.
Like Patrick's like, he's a little older, he's 5.5. So he really gets it. And, when I'm going out for my run, I mean, we'll all go in the forest, but like, it's very hard to have your run if you're with them, you end up carrying them and you're just studying every stone and every flower, which is beautiful, but you don't really get your cardio in. So Patrick knows, he's like, mom's going out for a run, it's good for her health. She's even happier when she gets back. It's so obvious. Yes. And they're so smart, they don't miss a thing. And then they even have, this is mommy's yoga music and mommy's yoga smell, like they're all the essential oils,
Yes.
And they'll come in, do their own little practice, and it's like, it makes me so happy because it's like, okay, even if they don't decide to do it, that's fine because they're their own person, whatever resonates with them. But even just to give them invitations, like, this is a form of self-care.
Yes.
And truthfully, these are some tools that I would have loved to have been taught at that age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, for me, one of the beauties of being an older mom as well is just I've developed a lot of self-awareness in the life that I've lived. And so I think I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I tend to be a very busy person. Like that is, just one of the ways that I actually keep myself calm, and a way that I've identified with productivity, which I don't so much anymore, but it was definitely an identification earlier in my life that like busy meant successful, busy meant purposeful, busy meant important. So I recognize that habit and that habituation in myself. And so I've really made an effort to allow my children to see me being silent, being still, so that I get to model that for them as well, rather than just the busy mantra. And the nature thing, I think you said, is just so critical. So the beach, is where my kids, they just go wild and they love it. You can just see them, just the energy that exudes from them. And they get to feel that. So it's not that I'm telling them that nature is important and powerful, but they get to actually just experience and be immersed in it. And it'll be something that they'll just kind of take for granted, I think, almost in that capacity as they grow up.
Mm-hmm. I'm loving that because, just what I'm hearing from you for women's wisdom and for men, just sleep, good sleep,
Yes.
Healthy nutrition,
Yes.
Self-care, something for the mind, meditation, even if it's gardening or whatever it may be, getting out in nature, a variety of foods, and supplements if needed, but just finding that balance in all the giving and the love that you give out in the world, with your two little girls, your hubby, and just all that you help in the world, and your clients, your videos, and all the work that you do. How could we be of service to you?
That's a great question. I like that question. I just listened to a Tim Ferriss podcast and he asked the same thing at the end. I thought that was so beautiful. I think that's really great. How can you be of service to me? I think that what you are doing with your message and with your vulnerability and your story, it gives other women courage to do the same, including myself. I'm truly inspired by everything that you're doing. I watch it all the time, and I just think you're a beautiful human being. And I think the more you live in your truth and you spread your message, it empowers all of the rest of us, including myself. And so I think that's how you can be of service to me.
Oh, thank you. That's like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Thank you, love.
Oh, you're welcome. I love you so much.
Here is today's action steps from Heidi and I. Where can you show up vulnerable and honest with the people in your life and be willing to ask for help and receive the support? Please also share this episode with at least one person that you feel can benefit by listening. Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to themandacons.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Cons podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacons.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love